Welcome to the Northern Powerhouse interview series, where we're unashamedly spreading good news by interviewing Northern businesses and their successes during the pandemic. Subscribe to be notified of new interviews or click the link in the description to take part if you'd like to be interviewed yourself in a future episode.
To Northern Powerhouse's business success stories. So today we have with us Andrew Ward, founder of Reparo Finance. So Andrew, if I can just start off by asking you to introduce yourself properly to us, and if you can tell us a little bit more about what you guys do and how you guys help your clients.
Yeah, morning, Vicky. Great to be here with you this morning. Yeah, I'm MD of Reparo Finance. We're a business finance provider. So we lend to typically SME companies in the UK, and those companies are typically companies that can't access some or all of their finance requirements from the mainstream sources, i.e. the bank typically. And although there are lots of other sources of finance now in the UK and worldwide, the first point of call for many SMEs and companies is still the bank, but obviously there's lots of restrictions there at the minute. So we step in with a service to provide loans to typically the SME market of up to £1 million, which are done, quickly, flexibly, and hoping to help those customers out. And those customers are typically in a state of change. They're not the kind of steady state business. So I typically put them into kind of two camps, if you like, a good news camp and perhaps a not so good news camp. So the good news is obviously, companies who need money and working capital for expansion, they're growing, perhaps acquisition, buying new machinery, new people, and all of that entails an increased working capital requirement. So we can step in and help those companies, achieve their aims. The reverse of that, of course, is equally that there are companies who are in elements of distress and or restructuring, and those companies similarly we can hopefully step in and provide the funding that they need to get out of their problem, which may, the multiple examples of that in terms of a loss of turnover, loss of clients, sector issues, obviously at the current time. So lots of different situations. So we're an SME owner-managed business ourselves, so we're the same as our clients, really. So we very much, take the time to get to know our clients rather than being a kind of faceless number at the end of a website or a phone call. We visit all our clients, obviously when we can at the current time, and really kind of get to know them and hopefully provide a quick and efficient service.
Brilliant. So, how do you feel sort of over the last 9 months, looking back, to last March, how's COVID affected your business?
Well, massively, dramatically, really. It's from a people perspective and the way we work. I've always been a kind of a frontline sort of person, if you like, and been in sales historically. And so a huge amount of my time pre-COVID was visiting our current clients, visiting potential future clients, visiting our partners who we work with. So we generally get introduced to our clients by an intermediary, which can be a finance broker or an accountant or another finance provider or a solicitor, or frankly anybody who works with companies. So we visit those people a lot, along with our partners in terms of our lawyers and our own funding partners as well. So pre-COVID, a huge amount of my time was out and about seeing those people, networking, and obviously quite a lot of travel involved in that as well. So our working world has just changed beyond recognition, really. However, I think we've coped with that quite well. Even pre-COVID, we were set up as a business that everybody had the ability to work from home anyway. So that was not an issue. All our systems are pretty modern cloud-based client management systems, which link into our accounts and client management and that kind of scenario. So as a business, we could structurally cope with that change quite easily. I think, has been highlighted by lots of people in the media, the kind of social and mental impact to people has been enormous, and we should definitely not underestimate that. And we haven't been able to get together as a team, clearly, but we we try and do that with kind of Friday afternoon socials and quizzes, etc., which I know a lot of people are doing. But that kind of mental side of wellness, if you like, is enormous. So it's affected the way we work dramatically. And it's affected our clients as well, clearly, because they are in a state of change. So many have been impacted by sector restrictions and various other aspects. So we've been working closely with them. A number have been on different repayment profiles, which we've tried to work with. So it's been a dramatic change all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. How I mean, you said you were previously set up for home working and all your systems you can access remotely. I guess nobody called this, did they? We didn't anticipate we'd all be working remotely for in isolation for such a long time. How's the team adapted?
I think they've adapted quite well. I think it's been hard, particularly for the new business team, because obviously, whilst we do, from generating inquiries and leads, we do embrace technology and generating leads, social media, obviously LinkedIn, etc., as well as the usual social media sources. But an awful lot of our inquiries historically are generated by getting out and seeing people and meeting those intermediaries. So it's been a huge sea change, particularly new business wise, in terms of how they can interact with prospective clients and their advisors. And obviously, Zoom calls like this and team calls, can substitute that. But I still might be a slightly old-fashioned view, but I still think if you're particularly building relationships with those clients and those advisors, that meeting face to face is not replaceable by a Zoom call. So, but I think we've coped quite well with it. Clearly, there's been a sea change in how SMEs are funded to a certain extent as well, in terms of all the government support that's been available in terms of bounce back loans, CBILS loans, and the furlough scheme, clearly, which has impacted on us quite heavily. Because frankly, if you're able to access the government money, it's comparatively cheap rates with little or no security given, then why would you not take that? So that's been a big impact on us in terms of a sector and policy. But now we're seeing that hopefully the green shoots of recovery with the vaccination program, that hopefully things will start to get back to normal, and those loan schemes will start to come to an end. And even if they get extended, some of them will start to be coming into a repayment profile as well. And we see at that point then an increased demand for our services from our clients.
Good stuff. So what about you from a leadership perspective, in terms of leading the team through this whilst they're working remotely? They don't have that interaction with one another. What changes have you had to make?
Yeah, it's very different, isn't it? Because I say I've always been very much a kind of face-to-face people person in terms of managing a team and how you go about that, and you can. Again, it's a bit like when we're face-to-face over a video call here, and you can kind of read people as to, are they smiling or are they happy, but you still can't get that interaction that you can, sitting opposite the person, in terms of exactly how they're feeling, and will they tell you over a video call anyway if they're not happy, either in business or personally, really. So it's very difficult, and we do, it is one of those little things of, we try and keep in touch with team meetings. We do it every Monday morning, we do it every Friday, and then as a team, and then in between as well, we're speaking to individual people, individual departments, and it's just a question of picking up the phone, I think, as well, and not necessarily involving work, but just seeing how people are. And within the team, we have, a mix of people. I've got teenage children in exam years, so that's one problem. But we also have a number of our team have young children, kind of preschool or early school, which frankly I really feel for them. So to try and lead that, I think you just have to try and communicate as best you can, and be sympathetic. So if they are homeschooling, for example, or they have to pick kids up from nursery, if they are at nursery or whatever they are, then I think as an employee, you just have to be as flexible as possible to let them do that, and work around it, which might involve, whatever family situation you have. One one parent homeschooling in the morning and one in the afternoon, and then you work around in flexible shifts. But we've always had that flexibility, frankly, in terms of, we're not a 9-to-5 organisation. If you want to work, if you want to get up at 6 in the morning and start working and have the afternoon to do something with your family or socially, then that's not an issue for us. It's about productivity and keeping people happy rather than working, sat at on a desk, really. So, but it is a challenge. There's no doubt. Your point of leading a team, however big or small that may be, is difficult because you can't see them and you can't really know how they're feeling, I guess, and you can monitor performance and the way you kind of business. But it's tough. I think it's just communication, frankly, in terms of keeping that dialogue open as much as you can.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's communication is key, isn't it? And there are, to be within a team where they know they have that support and that flexibility. It's what people crave now, isn't it? People don't necessarily want to be chained to a desk 9 to 5. Having that flexibility for work to, as long as the objectives are met, but it can work around your family. And, whilst we're homeschooling, I'm homeschooling my son at the minute as well and juggling everything else. And it's hard. So, knowing you do have a leader of your team, of your company who is empathetic to that and, keeping those channels of communication going. It's so important to people. It's so important to people. So you guys they're really lucky that they have that, for sure. So what would you say is the biggest issue that you guys have overcome sort of throughout this last 9-month period of craziness that we've all been in?
I think, the issue, I think, frankly, in terms of non-lending, which is what we do, the biggest issue is what we've discussed already. It's people and their mental well-being and keeping. So that, I think that without doubt is the biggest issue that we have as a business, in terms of, we're a very face-to-face organisation and we've not been able to do that. I think in terms of our actual business of lending, that the challenges there are really twofold, I would say. That the first of all is, I hinted at it a few minutes ago, in that we typically lend to the SME sector, and our product range is lending from about £25,000 to £1 million, or sometimes slightly over. So that very much fits into the bounce back sector, bounce back loans on the small end and the CBILS loans. So we've had a drop off in demand at that very much that smaller end. And equally, it's talking to our clients in terms of what they need and how they can work with us. So, for example, if we go back to April, then end of March, April last year, when everything hit, I think there was a sense of panic to a certain extent, and all our clients a lot of our clients rang us up and said, look, we need a 3-month payment holiday in terms of our loan repayments. So we said, look, okay, I understand the position, but frankly, you're not ringing HSBC up here. You're ringing, as I say, we're an owner managed business like our clients are. So, we have to manage our own position. So we went back to them and said, look, let's have a think about this. Can you afford half payments, or what can you afford over the next 3 to 4 months? And to be fair, I think the vast majority of our clients took that on board and worked with us to come up with a solution that worked for both parties, really. So, and that obviously we go through to kind of June, July, when things gradually eased and a lot of clients went back to normality and normal payments. Then obviously, we've had lockdown 2 or 3 or whatever you want to call it, and some are now back on a repayment profile. Clearly, there are certain sectors who are badly hit. Obviously, the obvious ones of hospitality and everything surrounding that. So it's just been managing those clients, really. So it's been a challenge, but it's also been a positive as well, that they have, we have engaged with them and said, look, we as Reparo, we're not a huge multinational organisation that can cope with having, no payments in for months. So it's a matter of creating empathy, I guess, with the clients and looking at their position.
Brilliant. So despite the challenges that you faced and you've clearly overcome, what wins do you feel that you've had during this time?
Well, I think we've been very, I think stability is a win in reality at this time. I think the positive side from our business that, and how we view things going forward is, we've been recruiting recently. So we've taken a couple of new people on in the latter parts of last year, in November and December last year. We weren't quite predicting a further shutdown in New Year at that point, but we've got good people there who are there, ready to hopefully enable us to expand, because obviously our plans have been somewhat on hold this year in terms of trying to get that stability in our business, and our growth plans have kind of been put slightly on the back burner. But obviously we want to increase and get back to those growth plans when we're able to. So I think we've kept a stable team. We've grown that team over the past few months, which again has had challenges as well, because we've taken new people on who we were able to meet one-on-one business-wise when they joined us in November, because we could meet them. But we've only met, normally myself and my sales director would be with them, a lot, guiding, and they're all like good people, experienced people, but equally they're new to us. So we'd be with them a lot, and we've had to replace that with, again, obviously meetings like this and Zoom meetings, but they've kind of been on their own and making them feel part of the new business, really. So I think stability, frankly, if you've stood still or even grown a bit or put plans in place for, hopefully when we're out of COVID, and hopefully that's the vaccine start to work sooner rather than later. It's that stability, but looking forward and planning as well, with an optimism of that growth in the future.
Fantastic. Your people are key, aren't they? If you've got that strong base with fantastic people, that's the key to facilitating that growth, isn't it? So it's fantastic that you've managed to recruit during this time. So of the adjustments that you've made, Andrew, the things that you've had to adapt, the adjustments that you've had to make, are there any that you think you will keep on doing? Are there any sort of adaptations that you think, actually this works well for us, or there is an advantage here and we're actually going to keep this going moving forward?
Yeah, I think, the whole first of all, I guess what might be regarded as the obvious point of an office scenario, and I'm sure we're not alone on this, is that, we had a permanent office, which I say, it wasn't a kind of permanent office which everyone had to go to every day, because we wanted people to be out and about seeing everybody, and there was that flexibility anyway. But we did have an office base, if you like, and I foresee going forward that we won't have that permanent office structure in place. I think we will have meeting spaces and obviously virtual offices, but also a real office as well moving forward. But that might be on a temporary basis, whereby we'll use the companies who have set up in that sector to let us hire rooms for a day or a morning or 2 days a week or whatever that may be. So I think that change, and obviously we're not on our own in that, the move away from that permanent office space, I think was happening anyway, clearly, but this will accelerate that process dramatically. So I think that certainly we will not go back to what we were in terms of that office space. We will be we'll meet, those virtual meetings that I said, Monday and Friday or whatever, whenever we need to, or meet clients. We'll hire rooms, either, whether that be on a kind of semi-permanent, 2 days a week basis, or whether a purely ad hoc basis. So I think that will certainly remain, and that's, whilst if you're an office owner, that's not a good thing. But I think in terms of business, that flexibility is key, really. I think as well, as I've said a number of times, we definitely want to go back to face-to-face meetings. That's the heartblood of my. And I think as a lender as well, it's there are clearly a lot of technology involved in lending nowadays at the smaller end, in terms of a logarithmic approach to lending and a remote approach to lending, if you like. And I totally buy into that, particularly at the smaller end of lending. But I think gaining an understanding of a business, again, you can't get that understanding remotely and via looking at pieces of information that are sent remotely to you. Whereas if you go and visit a business, sit down with directors for an hour, walk around the premises, whatever they are, whether it's a an office or a factory or a warehouse or a production site or a farm or whatever it may be. You gain that understanding of what they are. And I think from a diligence perspective as lenders, we want to get back to that as soon as possible. Having said that, equally, we have embraced technology and marketing over social media, and that will very much continue. We were doing that anyway, but obviously this is it's accelerated that process. So I think we will very much continue to market and increase our own technology as well, particularly at that smaller end of business diligence in terms of auto scanning of bank statements and those kind of scenarios that you can do now. So I think those are the two things I would say that will remain in terms of the office environment will change, and equally with the sort of whole social media and technology within fintech. If you like that term or not, I'm very much in the fin elements of that as opposed to the tech elements of it. But I do very much see where you are. But as a lender, you must have the experience to lend first of all, rather than be a techie first of all. In my opinion, and the two can embrace each other. So it's embracing technology to enable you to grow as well, and having those systems in place to enable you to scale, whilst also keeping that face-to-face and personal contact as well.
Absolutely. So if you could go back in time, if you could go back to March, knowing what you know now, is there anything that you would have done differently or done sooner?
I think it's very hard to go back, isn't it, and predict and say what would we have done. And there's a lot of hindsight, isn't there, and at the minute in terms of what we could have done. I think it's hard for us to react very quickly as a lender because we have certain parameters from our partners, our equity providers, and our lending partners that we have to adhere to. So that our product range at the low sort of sub £250,000 lenders been massively impacted because of the government loan scheme. So it would have been good to shift that very quickly to focus on the larger end. It's probably to £250,000 plus, but that's very hard to do because there's a structural change for us. And equally as well, even those businesses who are wanting those loans of, let's say, £500,000, for example, they were relatively nervous about obviously that kind of investment at that particular time. So I think it would have been hard for us to do something different. And I don't want to say we did everything right by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm always one for not looking back too much. Really, I think there are obviously lessons you learn all the way through. I've been lending to companies for 25 years, and I continue to learn all the time about the best practice of how to do that. But I think what trying a bit of positive slant on it, and again going back to people and also interaction between companies and socially as well. I think I'd like to think that we've learned almost what's important, if you like, that we're all trying to expand our businesses and be entrepreneurial and successful, but frankly that is irrelevant if you've got an ill relative or an ill child or worse. And I think and that whole aspect of work-life balance, I think, has been embraced, and hopefully will continue in the future. That might be people will act a bit better towards each other and towards companies, really. So yeah, I wouldn't look back and say we should have done anything particularly different. I think we can always do something better. You can always communicate better, and you can always look at, did we approve a client for a loan in the right way, or did we decline for the right reason, and look at those processes. And we may have been too cautious, we may have been too optimistic in terms of lending sometimes, and how we deal with those clients. But I'd like to think we've been those principles of how we feel we should grow and be successful and be entrepreneurial, combined with treating customers fairly and treating people fairly, were in place pre-COVID. I think that's kept us in good stead moving forward.
Brilliant, good stuff. So, as we look towards, the positives and the future, and the end hopefully being in sight, what are you guys looking forward to the most, as we move into the new normal?
I think very simply getting out, seeing people, seeing businesses. We all want to get out. We all want to have a, I think we're looking at in our world of finance, which links, whatever you want to call as alternative finance, or linked with asset-based lending and non-bank funding, if you like. It's a relatively close community. A lot of us know each other. We've worked with each other in the past, and there's a lot of social networking there. There's usually, particularly summer, Christmas, social events, whether that be drinks, networking, sports events, general networking. I think we're all desperate to get out in a group and have a good time. Frankly, that is really it. I think we're desperate for that social interaction of being able to, be in a bar or whatever it may be, or go out and play your sport, or you're doing music or whatever your interests are. Get out and see people. That's it, isn't it? I do look forward from a business perspective of getting back to a situation where all sectors are open fully. We might be some way off that. I say particularly for indoor hospitality would seem, whilst so we're all desperate to go, I guess, to the cinema and club, bars, restaurants, etc. Hopefully they can open sooner rather than later. But to get back as many sectors we can to normality, to start, frankly, lending to them, and giving those businesses the opportunity to grow and restructure and move on themselves is what we want to do from a business perspective. But ultimately, that goes back to the same point. We're especially in the winter. We're all sat here and. You look fantastic. I look a bit pasty, because we've been inside for several months. So we want to get out. Even in your garden, or I think living in kind of very rural North Yorkshire, I'm very lucky. I can try and get out for a walk with my wife most days. But it is that social interaction. I've known people that I've worked with in the past and currently, I've known for 20 plus years in business, and they're friends as well. They're not just kind of work relationships. They're people who are friends that we haven't been able to meet up with for whatever they may be. So it is very much get out and see people. Yeah.
Definitely, I am with you 110% on that one. I'm part of the reason I do what I do is that I'm such a people person, and I thrive on being in a team and and being in an environment whereby there's lots going on and there's lots of people around. So yes, I'm 100% behind you on that one. It's that social interaction that I think we're all just craving, isn't it? Been feeling like we're part of a team again, and being actually to be in the same room, to be able to go and do something socially. And I'm completely with you. And what do you envisage as your as challenges that maybe face you as we start to navigate this sort of coming out of lockdown and into the new normal?
Yeah, I think from a business, looking at a business perspective, and for us obviously a lending perspective, I think hopefully as we come out into a new normal, I foresee what we haven't had for quite a long time in the business community. There's been, almost a state of normality and non-movement, if you like. And you've heard the phrase kind of zombie companies in the past, and this phrase is used. So I think because interest rates have been so low for the past 10 years plus, the state of change in business to a certain extent has been relatively slow. And what I mean by that is those companies who in the past, those of us have been around for kind of 25 years, seen a few recessions, you've had a churn of businesses, and it might be very harsh on some of them, but some of those companies might perish and might not exist. They might have to go through an administration and insolvency process, but that those companies and that the people in those companies, hopefully, and the contracts and the work in those businesses will be taken up by existing businesses who are growing, new businesses that are set up, being a very entrepreneurial change in businesses. So I think I'm predicting, and I'm not alone, that there'll be a return to a certain extent of that process of failure, which is obviously very hard to take for those businesses involved, but equally more entrepreneurial businesses. I think we're seeing that in lockdown as well. People, set up on their own and doing new things and taking that opportunity. So what I would describe, perhaps wrongly, as a churn of business to get that moving. And I think that the challenge is, as always, really for us, is to pick the right ones, as to who is going to succeed. The state, as we all know, business has changed dramatically. I mean, crikey, without sounding, I started work when I didn't have a mobile phone or a laptop or internet, and clearly the pace of change in technology is enormous in terms of what we are able to do now in our sector, of what we're able to analyse technology-wise, and that logarithmic process of approach to financing, which has a place, as I say, certainly at the lower end, and the change in technology and the way we live is huge. Obviously, we've mentioned a few examples in terms of office working, which will not change. In terms of cash, we're undoubtedly moving towards a cashless society, and that was happening already. But I think the COVID has accelerated change. Perhaps in a bad way in certain circumstances, but also in a positive way in terms of how we work, so from home, from being flexible, from that work-life balance. And I think our challenge as a business is how we embrace all of that together. So how do we embrace, growing our team, growing our business in a way that, frankly, protects ourselves, that we don't lend too riskily.
Yeah.
And there's obviously a balance there in terms of, looking, too negatively or too positively. So, but first of all, we need to lend in a responsible manner, in a way that protects, frankly, our own shareholders and our own partners, but equally that demonstrates, globally, if you like, that we're doing the right thing. So it's embracing all those things together, I think, is a challenge, because everything's moving so fast. Say technology, office, entrepreneurial wise, socially wise, what you can and cannot do, regulation will come and change in our business. We operate in business to business lending, which is not a regulated environment at the minute, officially. We like to think we operate in a way that, as if we were regulated, with being registered with the FCA and various other organisations. But I foresee, for example, some small business lending may become fully regulated, like personal lending is.
Yeah.
So I think that the challenge as a business is to embrace all of those together. And you're not going to get everything right, but try and do the right things where you can and learn from your mistakes. Yeah.
All part of the process, all part of the learning.
Yeah.
So what would you say you've learned the most about yourself during this whole period?
I think, look, I think I found it hard. I will admit that, but equally, I don't, touch wood, and thankfully, our family's been healthy, and we've, had a business which has been, performing okay and profitably, and in this business time. So I think, I want to sit here and moan personally, because I think, we've thankfully been better off than a lot of people who've been suffering through family and through work, which is, so family and health is the most important thing. But I think we've learned, my wife might disagree, to be perhaps a little more patient in terms of what we do, in terms of, say, having teenage boys at home flying around, being a bit like caged animals. So hopefully we can be a little more patient with each other. But I have learned as well, as we have said, and you said, Vicky, what we enjoy doing. And that's, getting from a business perspective is seeing everyone we know, our clients, our future clients, brokers, partners, everyone we work with, is getting out, meeting people, and that extends to socially as well. My friends locally, sports clubs that we're involved in, and various other activities. That's what we enjoy, and we've learned perhaps what we do enjoy, and we shouldn't take that for granted, perhaps. So I think you've learned, what is important to you from all aspects of your life, perhaps.
Definitely, I completely agree. So what does the future look like for you guys?
Well, so I'm trying to put my optimistic hat on there. I think, we are, whilst we've, as I've described, we've had a period of, while our business has been doing okay, I would say, we take this and running as a steady state position and growing a little bit with those new people I described before Christmas, I would view as a success in many ways. But I'm very much looking forward very positively now to when we get out and about, when particularly all sectors are open and we can all go back to work and kids go back to school. I do foresee the demand for our facilities increasing quite rapidly. I think that's a view shared across our sector. So business-wise, I'm looking very optimistically there that we can grow, we can carry on employing more people, the right people, to stay with us for the long term and grow forward, and look to engage with those businesses who are either looking to grow rapidly that we can hopefully help, or indeed who have had problems themselves that we can now help them get out of those problems and get back to profitability and growth themselves. I think we need to understand what success is for everybody as well. Success for one person is very different for what success for another person is as well. Lots of entrepreneurs who set up a business like myself, perhaps want to grow quickly and rapidly and achieve, the dream, if you like, but equally, achieving a balance that we've referred to in terms of your family life and social life and work life is equally as important. But we are looking, very optimistically in terms of hopefully April, May onwards, we'll really get back out there. I may be being too optimistic there. It might be later than that.
No, we like
but I do think there are huge opportunities, not, obviously looking at my business, but equally for all businesses. If you embrace that change, and you look at the high street, if you like, as an example of what's changing. Obviously, clearly, it was changing dramatically from high street to online. Again, COVID has accelerated that change, and I think you look at businesses that have failed. Classic examples of Debenhams, Arcadia in the high street at the minute, and what have they done as a business? Well, if you look particularly Debenhams, and they haven't embraced online sales, they haven't embraced change. In my opinion, I'm no retail expert at all, but that would envisage, to me, that they haven't changed. Whereas, I think there's still a future for the high street in terms of perhaps more specialist shops, either high end or low end. Look at that, and obviously online you see the opposite to Debenhams and Arcadia with Boohoo and ASOS growing rapidly. So the future will bring tremendous changes in terms of scalability, in terms of change of your business, and it's how you embrace that across every sector. I would say, everything's changing. If you remain in the static middle, as was described to me years ago, if you remain in the static middle, you'll very quickly become extinct. You need to be at one end or the other. So the analogy for the high street is you sell it cheap and stack it high. So you look at Primark perhaps, or food retail, Aldi, Lidl, a classic example, or you go high in terms of high value, high fashion, if you like, in terms of high quality. But it's not being the same. It's not stuck in the middle. And I think that analogy applies to all businesses, really. To if you've been doing the same thing for 20 years, someone is going to overtake you, or even 5 years or 2 years. Someone is going to overtake you and do something different. So it's trying to come up with, more technology is a key part of driving that scale and change going forward. Ideas, new products. So we're always looking at, can we extend our lending criteria? Can we do? I want to extend our product range into larger deals, into longer term deals, into different sectors. So we're always looking at how we can evolve. So I think there are huge opportunities for everybody.
Brilliant. Andrew, thank you so much. It's been such an absolute pleasure to chat with you and and learn how you guys have managed to adapt and, you know, keep plowing forward and grow your business, recruit people during this time. You know, the dedication that you've shown to your team, you know, how you've taken care of them, and the fact that there's so many positives to come out of this for you guys. It's fantastic to hear, and you know, and hopefully to be able to share with others and the learnings that you've had. So I cannot thank you enough for your time. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Vicky. Been a pleasure. Thanks very much. All the best for everyone. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching. What was your takeaway from today's interview? Please post it in the comments below and subscribe for all our upcoming videos, or click for the next video here.